Here's the Ford 9N tractor I just bought. It's mostly intact and I know it was running about 10 years ago. So I'm going to go ahead and try to get this thing running. This tractor was already set up to run on a 12 volt battery. So I can't explain why it has a generator on it. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and dig into it. This tractor also has the Sherman shifter, which I guess is a good thing. I'm going to start out by removing the hood. There's no real point in showing this because this hood is not even properly attached. It has two bolts up here by the steering wheel, and the front's just hanging loose. And apparently the radiator was hanging loose as well. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, I'm just kind of inspecting the ignition system. Notice it has an external coil on the top that's not factory. That's a 12 volt coil, but that's a generator on it. These wires are a mess, and I don't even really understand what they're doing. I later on found out that the original coil, which is right there in the center that sits on top of the distributor, is actually hollow, and it has some kind of weird wiring going on. So I'm going to decide to go ahead and take all this off and not show it because it's not factory anyway, so it really doesn't matter. Okay, I've already removed the distributor. I'm about to take the fan off just to get easier access to everything. And after figuring out how much of a mess this is, I decided that what I'm going to do is just go ahead and start from the beginning and try to get a starter on here that can actually turn the motor over. And real quick, I'm going to check to make sure the motor's not locked up by turning it with a wrench. All the oil lines are intact. The starter's there. It's actually hooked up. That's not factory. But this tractor was supposed to be running. I don't like this because this isn't factory. This is a relay. They're using that for a starter relay. And what they did was they totally bypassed a neutral safety switch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just stick a battery in it and see what it does. What I'm doing here is just cleaning the terminals with some sandpaper. Okay, so now that the terminals are clean, sort of, I'm going to go ahead and just hook the battery up. Make sure she's in neutral. And let's see what we got. Oh, we just made some electrical noises. We're making progress. Alright, so those noises are coming from the starter. The starter's spinning. The gear's just not turning anything. Man, I thought these things are supposed to be simple. So there's a starter, but I actually don't even know how to take it off. It has no bolts. I guess I look real smart. I'm over here trying to teach people stuff. Okay, so yeah, these are the bolts that take it loose. But first, before I actually take it off, I'm going to take the battery loose. I don't want to arc something out. Okay, as soon as I can find my sockets, I'm going to go ahead and take this main hot cable off that's on the side of the starter. That's how I already know that it was previously ran on a 12 volt battery. And even though it has a generator, I can't explain that, but you've seen how I just hooked it up, and it does not have a positive ground like a 6 volt does. Either way, whatever. So now that I have this off, I'm going to go ahead and pull the starter out. Before I end this video, I just want to say a few things. I really don't know, and I can't give any good advice on the proper way to get an old engine started. I mean, this engine may not have oil pressure. I might damage it by burning the bearings up, and I don't really care. I'm doing this at my own risk. But I do know this engine was running 10 years ago. I've seen it with my own eyes, and it may have been running up until maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I'm not really sure. So I'm kind of assuming everything's good. Whenever I spun the motor, it spun very freely and stuff like that. So I'm just assuming everything's good. So before you start your old engine, I don't know, maybe look up try to do some research on the proper way to do it, because I'm not sure there is one. Okay, so now that I have the starter out, I'm just trying to inspect the Bendix and try to figure out why it's not engaging the flywheel. I thought it might be stuck or something. I later on spin it down to where it goes into that mode where it's stuck and you can't get it to work. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you'll see in my next video. Anyway, if you found this video helpful or interesting or entertaining, please like and subscribe. That way you can see my future adventures on trying to get the starting system working on this tractor. I actually end up pulling the starter out of the other Ford 8N that's sitting in the background, and it has the older style with the spring. I used that Bendix, but then I figured out that the aluminum plate at the front of the starter is wrong, and it doesn't actually seat all the way into the mounting part of the transmission, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. I really went through a whole lot just to get this thing to turn over. Anyway, the end.